Jones. Catherine's got quite an adventure right now. She's on her way. She's in a car and she's on her way from Liverpool to London. So what are you doing in London, Katherine?
Woo! We've got a couple of events to go to. We're going to one, which is with one of our wine suppliers, Thomas Ridley. It's an event for basically lots of bars and restaurants to buy wine for their Christmas offering, because they're all creating their Christmas menus right now. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Oh, you got a lot of sun in the background again.
Oh,
well,
sorry.
That sounds really nice. So that sounds wonderful. So it's 4 hours from Liverpool to London. There you are. Okay.
Yeah.
And so right now I wanted to tell everybody we're being broadcast like on 10 different Facebook pages.
Okay, nice.
So Time to Wine is a live broadcast that is featuring experts in wine, social media marketing, and leadership. It is 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, the second and fourth Monday of the month. And the international broadcast, because if you haven't noticed, we have the whole EU participating, is regarded and scheduled on the first and third Friday of the month at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Both podcasts are featured on Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And we are now going live, which we're doing right now. We're on about 10 different Facebook pages. We are going live on Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and YouTube Live. I was approved for LinkedIn Live. So what we'd like you to do, you can ask us questions live. We can answer them. I'll be watching on my side. Please let us know that you're watching, and you're welcome to jump in at any time and ask questions, and we're happy to answer them. All right, so Katherine and I are going to be talking about her two businesses. We are Social Nation and Think Wine Group. She is an entrepreneur. She started a new business, and so we're going to talk about what's going on with that. So Katherine, let's talk a little bit about your work history. Can you hear me pretty well?
Yeah, I can hear you. So my background has always kind of been sales and marketing. I've worked in sales and all different forms of marketing for many years. I think I told you last time, obviously I first started my career really in the US, in Louisville, Kentucky, working for the Marriott.
That must have been interesting. Quite a culture shock. Yes.
Yeah, for me it was, yeah. And you know what, like, people see Louisville in the US, people see that as quite like a smallish city really. While as like to me it was a humongous city, huge. So, but yeah, that was where I started things, and then I came back to the UK, graduated university, moved to China. I was still sticking to always sales and marketing. Came back to England, again more jobs in sales and marketing, until I eventually decided to set up on my own.
So my whole background is in sales and marketing too, and in public speaking. So what were you doing in China? What kind of work were you doing in China? And what were you doing in Louisville?
So in Louisville, I was on an internship program because I'd come over during my year out at university. So I was only 19, and I was basically an intern in the Marriott. So I worked on every single department. I worked on marketing, events, I worked on reception, I worked on night shift, I worked on all of the areas of a hotel basically throughout the year. Then when I went to China, I was working for another American company, funnily enough. They were called World Health Foods or World Health Food Store. It was basically a startup, but it was an American startup in China. So it was run by Americans, but we were marketing it to expats in China, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So again, I was picking up probably a lot of. It was weird because it was like an American way of doing things, but obviously trying to adapt it towards a Chinese, I guess, market in some respects, but also towards expats. So yeah, I did that there, and then I came home, and then I got a job for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which was again an American company. So prior to actually starting my own business, I mainly worked for American companies.
And you had mentioned that working. Yeah, we'll get. I guess we'll get to that when we get to the culture shock. But you talked a little bit about the differences between working for an American company and working for a company in the UK, and you took some things from that you thought were advantageous. What you want to talk about that real quickly?
Yeah. I mean, that was probably more so like my very first role. When I first got to the US, I was, as I say, I was only 19. I'd done some jobs, but it was very much just bar work or a bit of waitressing. I hadn't really done any kind of professional roles as such. So when I went to the US, I was thrown out onto reception to face, all these people, and I was absolutely terrified, and I was shaking in my boots, like, oh my god, how am I gonna survive here, just facing customers, like facing really. I was terrified, but I very quickly learned, like it Olympic, get out there, get it done, make a sale. Very focused on sales, very focused on customer service. And I learned that very young. I learned that customer service is everything. I learned to make sales, and also I gained confidence really quickly because I could see myself improving in the role, and very quickly I became the top seller. And then from that, my confidence just shot through the roof, and I was able to bring back with me to England, which is a place where people are very, very self-deprecating and very, they're the first ones to say, oh, I'm not that great at this, or they don't really want praise, or if they get praise they go shy or embarrassed. While as in America, it's like celebrate every single success loud and proud. And I learned that, and I brought that home with me, and I've had that ever since.
Yeah, I was in a very stressful training situation where we had to do public speaking on the fly come up with a 3-minute conversation about a very bizarre topic and then speak in front of a big group of people. And this was in Europe. And what I was doing is I was really nervous. So quite often I would go first so that I could get it out of the way. But and then some of the other countries, it was perceived as being aggressive and rude. It we lost her. Are you back? Okay.
Sorry, yes, I'm back.
In some of the other countries, it was perceived as being very aggressive and rude, and not. And I was just trying to get it out of the way so that I wasn't sitting there with my stomach in a knot. I was like,
Yeah.
let's go. Do you want to talk about your cosmetic lines and perfume lines and things that you've done with the Chinese lines?
They were not. The cosmetics lines, I started them when I was working for someone else. Mm-hmm. So I moved, after I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, I moved to a startup business. The startup business was a celebrity management agency, and we managed people with large social media followings, predominantly reality TV stars. And I was working for them, and we helped build the company.
Okay. And then I wanted to talk to you a little. So and then is that when you started We Are Social Nation, or was that later? Katherine is on the move from, oh, there she is. Are you back? Liverpool to London.
No.
Can you hear me?
No. So I was working for someone else, and we set up cosmetic lines together.
Okay. Yes. So you were working for someone else and you set up cosmetic lines. Okay, so let's talk about how you met your partner, Leo, on LinkedIn. Going live is always an adventure, from Israel to the UK to other countries. They've got a long list of questions for her. I just did Australia. All right. So while I'm sitting here and we're missing Katherine, who is en route to London, Well, I would love to have you participate or ask any questions and jump in to ask Katherine when she's here, and your question will post on the screen. I'd love to have you. Katherine is MIA at the moment, so here she is. She is back.
I'm going to pull over now so that this doesn't happen again.
Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back, and I'm pulling over so that it won't happen again then.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so talk about, you met Leo, you met your partner on LinkedIn. Do you want to talk a little bit about that story?
Yeah, sure. So it was just prior to lockdown, and I needed I'd recently moved into my new office because we'd expanded, and I needed some signs doing for the front and some neon signs for inside the office. So a couple of people had recommended him to me on LinkedIn. So he came in to do a quote, and then he sent me a text after he, we got on well when he came in, and then afterwards he sent me a text just asking if I wanted to go for a walk with him. And I was like, okay, then, no problem. Let's do that.
But also, it was right in the middle of lockdown.
Yeah.
And I think you were like, there wasn't we weren't allowed to see people at that point.
Yeah. Well,
we went the entertainment committee showed up.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I kind of thought,
here we go.
If we're in a lockdown, it's no problem. I'll be seeing how it goes just on walks and stuff. We didn't get to go on any proper dates really. So yeah, but no, it was good. It worked out in the end, even though I probably wouldn't have even agreed had it not been locked down.
And I during lockdown, I usually go to the gym 6 days a week, and I started walking. So I've been walking 25,000 steps a day.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yes, it's actually kind of nice to be outside walking. So how did you find? Okay, let's talk about Think Wine Group, and how did you find that business? And then we'll talk about your second year celebration.
Yeah. Okay. So Think Wine came about. So I know we were in the middle when it went off earlier. We were talking about Social Nation. That was my first business. So my first business was an influencer marketing business, and I wanted to start my own brand that I would be able to, sell online predominantly, but also I just wanted a brand that I was passionate about, and I was really passionate about wine. So, that's how Think came about. The Think is a reduced calorie, reduced sugar. It's vegan. It's organic, and I started that purely. It was myself really. I've always struggled with weight. I also go to the gym every day. I go 5 or 6 times a week, and the problem is I love food. So I always eat, and the way they say you can't out train a bad diet, it's very correct. So I've always fluctuated. Sometimes I'm quite skinny, sometimes I'm a bit bigger. Right now I'm a bit bigger because it's been lockdown and I've ate a lot. But so I've always struggled, and I was like, what if you could create a wine that still tasted delicious, but just with less calories and less sugar? Surely there must be a way to do that. And so that was how the thought for Think Wine came about. Then I just started looking into it. It was trips to Italy. I needed to find the correct winery that had the exact same morals as what I had. So that's what I did.
And so now I was looking over here at the comments to see if anybody had sent us any comments yet. So now you're on your second year, and I noticed you just had a second year celebration. Do you want to talk about some of the highs and lows of having your own business and your celebration? Talk about your celebration. And are you using the celebrity influencers to market your own brand?
Yes, yeah, I am. That was the whole reason I started it, and that is the main way we market it, through influencers. It's super successful, and you get a return on investment like no other. But yeah, so it's been our 2-year anniversary. It was our 2-year birthday yesterday, so we were all very excited with that. I think the hardest for me has been staff. It's so difficult to find the right staff, to find someone who's as passionate as you are, or who, is as dedicated. And it's very, very difficult to find people. And what I had happen to me this year is a member of staff actually stole money from me, which was absolutely heartbreaking, because I really loved this member of staff so much. So it broke my heart. So that was, for me, without doubt, like the hardest situation since starting my own business. But there's so many ups as well. There's so many highs. We've got into some venues that I would never have dreamt that we would get into. We made so many sales throughout lockdown. I was a brand new business, but because everyone was drinking more wine and everyone wanted a healthier option, our wine was selling out like really quickly. So we had to place an order way quicker than we thought we were going to have to. So yeah, it's there's highs and lows like there isn't anything, but there's been plenty more highs than lows.
It seems like it's going really well from what I can see. And talk a little bit about your social media presence with your brands. I know that you have a heavy social media presence. I don't look at all of your platforms, but I know you do on LinkedIn. So do you want to talk about your use of social media, or how you market your brands on social media?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I market it differently dependent on the platform. So on our Instagram, it's all about pretty pictures that look amazing, pictures that are very high quality, very high resolution, showcase the bottle, really nicely. And I'm very fussy on my Instagram. I will only ever post a picture that I really believe to be like a 10 out of 10 picture. While as on my LinkedIn, it's more me as a person, behind the brand, what goes on behind. Like, it's not all like smiles, basically. Like, I share a lot of the stuff that we do because we do loads of fun things. Like, we go to Ibiza, we sponsored Ibiza Fashion Festival, and we went on a regatta yacht race, and all these fun things. I always showcase them. But then at the same time, I also showcase, some of the lows. Or, today this happened. Like, my wine came in from Italy, and HMRC seized my wine because we got a document wrong. So it's like I share my whole journey, and I share everything about myself personally. So it's a completely different platform. And I'll come on like this, obviously I've got rollers on my hair because I've said that I'm going to an event tonight. On LinkedIn, I'm very much just my own down-to-earth self, trying to be as honest as possible on this business journey. While as on Instagram, it's a completely different platform. It's all about making it perfection, looking amazing, looking great, because it's all about the product rather than about me. So I guess I've got two completely different large platforms, really.
And the thing about social media is it's a very consuming passion.
Oh yeah.
So this, for example, this particular StreamYard situation, there were not directions on how to do this. So I had to look at many, many tutorials on getting this all set up and setting up the banners. And there's still things going on that I'm having to write StreamYard that I think I kind of invented and say, I need it to do this. It needs to do this.
Oh, yeah. So then they do it for you.
Yes. And so then I'm sitting there going, oh, I've got to do TikTok. I've got to do Clubhouse. I've got to do funny videos on Instagram.
Do you know what? I gave up on Clubhouse because it was just so time consuming that I was just like, you know what? I've had enough of you.
Yeah, let's take a social media break.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's get into the which we both have had. So you have some funny international culture shock stories. I have some funny international culture shock stories. Why don't you start with your funny stories?
Oh God, can you go first?
Oh, can I go first? Oh gosh, yeah. Let's see. Funny stories.
I need to think.
Let's see. Let me think of some of mine. A lot of mine are in Italy. A lot of mine are in Brazil. So I think I was telling, I have a friend in Australia that I interviewed the other day that she's actually Brazilian. So here's my Brazilian. I have a Brazilian family in Brazil, and so I'm going to Brazil. They
Yeah.
all have cosmetic surgery except me.
Okay.
I look like they're very little women, and so in Brazil, if I go to Brazil, they're much smaller women than American women, and
Mhm.
so I have trouble finding clothes. So I can't buy clothes there because they don't have clothes in my size, which is a medium in the United States, but in Brazil, it's something that doesn't exist
Oh wow.
because
Gosh.
they're just smaller. So I
Yeah.
get to Brazil, and so I'm always worried because they all have cosmetic surgery and I don't. So they always have on these beautiful tropical gowns. They wear gowns, and their summer is in the middle of my winter. So when I go to Brazil, I'm usually supposed to bring a gown, and their gowns are all really tropical, these beautiful tropical gowns. So I'm trying to find something here when everything here in the winter is black, or there's nothing in Eugene, Oregon, we don't have a big selection of tropical gowns.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
I can
show up,
imagine.
I'm much bigger than all the women. I don't have cosmetic surgery. I have on the wrong clothes. And every time I get there, they are like, "It's Jessica." And they're all, "We like your hair. We like your dress. We like your jewelry. You have your haircut
Oh.
like Victoria Beckham." They all, and everything I'm worried about, it goes the other
They love.
way. "Jessica
Yeah.
came to visit."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh no!" But then they start pulling at my face and going,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
cosmetic surgery. Like, we need to do something with your eyes. But apparently in Brazil, if cosmetic surgery is very inexpensive. So if you go, "Oh, I'm very sad, I'm depressed because I have a wrinkle here," um, the doctor will say, "We're going to solve that problem, and it's covered by insurance, and your wrinkle is no longer there
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
because you're depressed, and they'll fix it for you, and they'll fix your bust and everything else." So I was like,
Oh
"Okay."
my God.
So that's
Wow.
my culture shock.
Yeah.
And
That
then,
sure is.
so what you've got some with United States? You must have some with China.
There's so many with China. Oh my gosh. Because China is. I think I thought. I mean, English and American Chinese food is just absolutely not Chinese food. What we consider Chinese food is just nowhere near. So I think it just getting to China and seeing the food, that was a huge culture shock because I was like, this is not the food that I was expecting. Because what we would see as that was just
Chinese food
completely.
in
Yeah,
United
it's
States or
just.
England. You were
Yeah,
eating a
no.
scorpion on a stick.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, there's no scorpions on sticks there, so that was quite a culture shock. But also, I think they use a term "lawai," which means like foreigner, basically, and they scream it in your face, but like with excitement, obviously. Like they're like, because they're so like, oh my God, like happy to see you. They want to get pictures with you like you're a celebrity just because you're white. And this isn't in every area, but if you go to, the areas where there's not really many, like, many travelers, they literally will shout in your face, Lawai, Lawai, Lawai. And then they'll just pull the camera out and get pictures of you right in your face. And you're like, oh my gosh, this would never happen in like England or America. That would be seen as, complete racism, or people would be offended or whatever. But I actually liked it. They made me feel like quite the celebrity. So, but it was definitely a culture shock, stuff like that happening.
My husband's Brazilian, and they were doing that to him in Korea. Like, he'd walk down the
Yeah.
street, and they were running up to him, and he was like, "I'm kind of a celebrity in Korea."
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about COVID and the Okay, so we've all gotten used to it now. We had the immediate lockdown that was all pretty scary, where we weren't supposed to talk to anyone, or we were supposed to social distance from our families. So then we've gone through a big wave of change for the past 2 years. So do you want to talk a little bit about COVID and the silver linings of COVID?
I mean,
And
for
is that
us,
silver linings? Does that translate, or is that
yeah.
okay?
I mean, there was definitely a silver lining for me in that, I had a brand new business. It was a wine company, and I just didn't know how we were going to survive. And I was really like panicking, thinking, how will we get through this? I've got staff that I need to keep employed, basically. And it was like overnight, our sales just erupted. And I think it was purely based on the fact that people were ordering things to their house, so they weren't going to the supermarket to buy wine. They were ordering wine online. So the change in customer behavior was really beneficial to my business, and then also the fact that our wine's vegan, organic, reduced calories. It has all of these health benefits, and I think that when people were buying stuff online, they were looking at things that would have a health benefit. So it worked out completely in my favor in the end, and our sales like quadrupled overnight in the middle of a lockdown. So
It's funny how some of
that was
these
our silver
things
lining.
work, yeah, in different areas. And then, and then vegan and all of the things, the low calories are up and coming in the wine industry in general as a trend. So, yay. So,
Yeah.
then do you have any other things you noticed just in general that you think were silver linings?
To be honest, that was probably the only one. Everything else was miserable. We couldn't have all the staff together in the office. We couldn't travel so much. So the deliveries that I would usually do, all the bars and restaurants were closed. So, I mean, for my particular business, that the sales and the fact that they grew quickly is probably the only silver lining.
And then some of the silver linings I saw on this side were, and it's still happening, there was kind of a shift from consumerism to family that I think happened all over the world. So there were
Yeah.
a lot of, I was just seeing this on Facebook. There were a lot of families that were like their college kids came home, they had younger kids there. And while everybody was on lockdown, they seemed to be doing things like home projects, such as
Oh
people
yeah,
were
we had
painting the
lots of that.
house, people were cleaning the garage, people were cleaning the driveways. There were a lot of families sitting and doing puzzles. It seems like before we were really focused on shopping and being busy, working, shopping, not a lot of family. And there were a lot of people that were working from home here in the United States mentioning that it took them an hour and a half to get to work and an hour and a half to get home. And they saved 3 hours a day by working at home, and they had their families around and things like that. And
Yeah.
how big is Liverpool?
God, I don't really know. It's probably a medium-sized city. Like
A
it's
medium-sized city?
yeah, it's not like it's anywhere near as big as London, but it's still quite a decent size.
So and
Um,
you can get
but
to London in 4 hours. Okay. And I'm
yeah,
I'm 2 hours away from Portland, and I'm about 5 hours away from Seattle.
okay.
So
So
if
we
that kind of puts it in
it's
perspective.
if we're driving to London, it's 4 hours, but if we get the train, it's only two. The train's pretty quick, but yeah, I mean, people don't tend to commute from Liverpool to London, for example. They may do now and again, but it's not like an everyday situation, I guess. But a lot of people commute from like Liverpool to Manchester or Manchester to Birmingham. So that can often be a 2 hour commute, especially if you're in traffic. So yeah, people definitely saved on time traveling.
Okay. And yeah, I think that's happened here too. So, okay. So we're at about 29 minutes. And do you want to just talk about some of your successful tips for entrepreneurs? You can talk about just successful tips for entrepreneurs, or you can talk about successful tips for entrepreneurial women.
Okay. For me, my top tips really is kind of, I always say resilience is key, especially I suppose with women. Um, I know many women who are, just as good, if not better than men at what they do. and they've, not received promotions as quickly, or they haven't got to the position they want to as quickly. And I think it's all about being resilient and taking the knocks and getting back up again. What I see with some entrepreneurs is, they get knocked down and they don't get back up again. They just say, okay, well, I've taken a hit, whether it's like a hit to the ego, or whether it's a hit to they've lost some money, or there's all types of hits that businesses, especially small up and coming businesses, will take. But it's all about being hit and getting back up again from being hit. So for me, resilience is key. And I will always say that's my biggest tip for anyone. Be resilient, and if you get knocked down, just make sure you get straight back on the horse straight away, and don't wait around, because quite easily you can become dispassionate, and once you lose that passion, you may as well not bother, because you won't get to where you want to be without that.
I agree. I am very, very set on having my own business and starting my own business. And there's a variety of things I can do, which are speak about social media or speak about marketing, but then also do workshops. And I've had a lot of people around the world say, can you come teach us how to use social media? But I also am very interested in public speaking, doing workshops, and I'm just very set on this, which is why I'm doing these broadcasts. And I would love to also have a digital agency as well on my side. So I am working, and I think whether things, like the resilience is, one, don't give up.
Yeah.
There's so many people that give up. If you read anything like Think and Grow Rich, or any of these books that came out with any of these inventors like Ford, they didn't know the how, but they sat there and continued to do what they were doing until they got it. And it may take years to do it, but I'm, the same thing. I think being very resilient, keep going, being persistent. And I love talking to women entrepreneurs, and I'm so proud of you. So why don't you tell us right now, tell everybody how we reach you on social media, and then I'll just post a little banner to end, and then we'll just end. And then I'm anxious to hear about what you're doing in Liverpool, so I hope you're going to post it. So let everybody know, how do we get in touch with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, I'm Katherine Jones with a K, Katherine, or I am on Instagram at Think Wine Group.
Let me see if I've got it here, where I can post it right here.
Same on,
here we go. Okay.
That's the same on TikTok as well. At Think Wine Group on TikTok, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. We're all at Think Wine Group. And personally on LinkedIn, Katherine Jones with a K.
And how do people go about buying your wine if they are in the United States? And is that possible?
Right now they cannot. However, in a couple of weeks' time, it will be available to 4 different states. It's going to be available in California, New York, New Jersey, and Florida. That is in a few weeks. And hopefully, if those 4 states go well, we will expand as quickly as possible. It's very difficult with alcohol in the US, because every single state has different laws, different rules, different regulations. So you almost need to treat each state like a separate country. And that's why we can't just kind of go in with a bang and take on all the states, which I would actually prefer to do. But so we'll be launching in those 4 states in the next few weeks. So if you're there, you'll be able to get it.
What's that?
So if you're in any of those states, anyone listening, they'll be able to get it soon.
Oh, good. And I'm close to California. So
drive on over and pick some.
I'll drive on over. I'll meet you there. We'll meet in California at the LAX airport. And
Fabulous. Can't wait.
Do you have an advertising and marketing budget for the United States?
I will have, yes.
Okay. So will it be in magazines and things like that, or on television?
Probably not television, as I don't have that big a budget.
Yes. Okay. So magazines and things. Okay.
Yeah, magazines, influencers as well.
And is there anything else you'd like to say to?
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been good.
Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon. As soon as I get the Instagram broadcast ready, I'll contact you again, and we'll do Instagram. Okay, I'm going to post a little ending here, and we'll tell everybody thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, there's a broadcast live after we go live. So thank you so much, Katherine. And here we go.